that sort of feels comfortable. And
Yeah.
and I do have a lot more muscle. Like it's,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like it, but I actually have more than I did before.
Did you do you work out?
I do as much as I have time for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. You're
don't-
very busy.
Yeah, I don't have huge amounts of time. I've always run, so I'm a runner.
Right. And runners tend to be pretty lean.
Right. So I run every day, and then I do push-ups, and that's about. And I do arm weights sometimes. But I was severely anemic always before I started testosterone. So when I first started testosterone, I actually had to, because they do blood work before you start,
Yes.
and I had to take iron tablets like 3 times a day for 6 months to get. But now that I don't have periods, I'm not as anemic as I was. So I have more energy because I'm not anemic.
Okay.
But I do know that post-top surgery, running is more fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
Running is like there was the first, because you can't do anything for about 2 months, and then
Were you wearing sports bras?
yes,
Yeah.
prior.
It must have been so nice to just like toss those things away.
Those. Yes. So I remember like the first time. So about 2 months, like you can't do anything for like 2 months, and I think I waited about 2.5, 3 months, and I walked every day.
Sure.
But I didn't run. And the first time, it's sort of a weird feeling you have
Right.
to get used to.
Right, because it's still pretty sore and tight, and
And you're just like
Yeah.
everything. I mean, that feeling, if you've had it, just the immediate month afterwards, that your whole chest is just gonna pop open from the pressure. But now,
right, because the tissues swell because
Swell, yeah.
they're healing.
right,
Yeah.
But now that everything's healed up, now I just feel like I can hold my back much straighter.
Yes.
And so I can get a more natural leg position. So I feel like it's better post-op surgery. I don't really notice that much with the testosterone, but definitely post-op it's better to run.
Yeah, I know for myself, I didn't run very much because I have arthritis that I've had for a very long time, and I had some injuries when I was a kid. But I was very large-breasted, and so if I did do sports, which I was very into, when I could play sports, having breasts was quite a thing. So when I didn't, it was very, very different physically. How that felt.
I wasn't that big. I was a B to a large.
But also,
B,
you're a small person,
right?
Yeah.
So proportionally, it was enough.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't have bigger, but I always would have multiple sports bras on, and it's just a relief.
Yeah, I remember I had several layers of like t-shirts and various things kind of binding me up, and then usually like a big billowing shirt on top of that. So it was like several layers. And when I was binding or hiding that I had breasts, and to live that way is kind of rough, because I remember always kind of crouching and hiding myself, and when people would look at me, I would kind of turn away. I felt very, I didn't want people looking at me.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
I didn't even want to look at myself.
Oh, I was very conscious, and I think for me the biggest thing was always an uncomfortability in my body, and so I couldn't even sleep at night without a sports bra on,
Really?
because
Wow.
the movement would just drive me crazy. And so I had I was small enough, like I could wear a stretchier one, a lighter one, but I never slept just without anything because I didn't like the sensation. I always had issues with that, but I didn't really bind that much in public.
I was the opposite.
Because because I wasn't trying to I didn't really realize what was happening, so I wasn't, as soon as I did, like I said, I took advantage of the fact and went really quickly, and I got top surgery within like 6 months. So
that's great, because you were on the informed consent model.
Yes.
For me, I had to go through quite a bit of therapy, like years of it. And then also at that time, it was just difficult to get any health care, if you were a trans person. And so it was a longer, more protracted process.
Right.
Yeah.
I went to a therapist. So after I went through my own we talked about before, I information gathering, and then there was
Yeah.
about 6 months where it was like
Did you see people, by the way, in person? Other
therapists or
no,
a trans-
other trans people.
Yes. So there were several people where I was, but I didn't have the courage to actually ask any questions or do a lot of talking. I just sort of, paid a lot of attention to what they were doing, but didn't have the courage to actually ask any questions. It was like, I didn't know what to say. They were trans.
A really enthusiastic ally.
Yes, I just am the most supportive ally.
Yes.
But I didn't know what to say, and I didn't want to bring up my questioning
and then
things
for that
to
also
that person.
Also, it's your workplace,
Right,
so,
right.
You have to be a little careful about that.
And there weren't a lot of social opportunities outside of that, and so it was a complicated situation.
Yes,
but I went through about 6 months where I just focused on it, and I what do I want with my life? What am I doing? What am I going to give up? What am I willing to give up? How much uncertainty? And a very focused 6 months, and this was after coming to the realization. Like, this was like, what do I want to do? What's the plan? And then I made a plan, and then at that point I went to a therapist because I wanted personally just someone out external to me to tell me, yes, what you're doing makes a lot of sense, or maybe there's something else to think about. I did want some sort of external validation, if you will, that I wasn't.
It's nice that you had that choice. Prior to it, like on the model that I was on, we were forced into it. Even if we really didn't need therapy, even if we were really sure and been thinking about it forever, we were forced into it. And at that time too, there was no insurance coverage, so we had to pay everything out of pocket. And therapy is really expensive. I was paying like $120, like 20 years ago, because there weren't a lot of people offering it. Well, I was lucky, so it was all covered, because under COVID we could do free. Where I was working, we all had free psychotherapy for a certain thing, and so I took advantage of that as well. Do it. And I do agree that it's good to have it as a choice, and not forced upon you, because it's a choice. You really want to do it,
and I would encourage people to make that choice, just because I think it's helpful.
It can be helpful, definitely.
Even if, because I was sure I had done the work, but I just wanted to talk it through with somebody before I committed to changing my body permanently or semi-permanently. I wanted to go through with someone with more experience with these things, and on my terms. And I think that's the difference with the informed consent. If you choose that, it's on your terms and not on another person's, that it's
respectful of you as a person as well. Also, people will seek out like peer support or peer support groups that are led by a therapist or something like that, or just peer focused ones. There's lots of ways to do it, to get different kinds of support. You can also have a mentor. When I was first starting out, a very nice fellow, this was in Oregon, met with me. And he had met individually with many trans men, because we were very isolated. There wasn't much of a community. It was very different then. And he would meet with us one-on-one and talk to us. And if we had any questions, the dumb questions, the things you didn't want to ask people, the very private questions about sexuality and relationships and that sort of stuff, he was so giving. And Thank you for doing that, because it was such a blessing to be able to talk to him.
And I think that's important to just sort of, even though I was sure, I just needed a little bit of confirmation externally that I was, and also what to sort of expect, because I hadn't really talked to a lot of people about it. It was all very internal.
You weren't in like a queer community where you might have more social support. Right.
I didn't have that. So I went, and I think I went about 4 sessions, and then I was like, okay, well, let's get, I need a letter. Okay. So, and then I got my letters for the endocrinologist, and started testosterone, and I lucked into that much. I was very lucky with that. So I went to therapy about 4 times. So it was about 3 months, because I couldn't go regular. Like, it was not like boom, 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 boom. It was like once a month. And then I went about 4 times. So it was about 3 months. And then got the letters for the endocrinologist, and then that took forever to just get the appointments. But then once I got the
because that's a specialist.
yes, and so that took a while, another like 3 months, and then
3 months.
yeah, to get in.
That's still pretty quick.
Yeah, but it's.
I'm just thinking about the situation right now, and
I know I'm very privileged. Like I know this. Like it was.
If you're somebody who has less privilege, thank you for bringing that word up. You're going to a low income clinic or something like that, or a clinic that is for transgender people. Oftentimes the waiting lists are up to a year or even more if you can even see anybody, and it's really some people go to different states.
Well, and Connecticut is really good. So Connecticut, so this was through my work, but like there it's statewide, you have to cover trans care. Like it's impossible to have insurance in Connecticut at any workplace or any state covered healthcare that doesn't fully cover
Thank
trans.
you, Connecticut.
Yeah.
When I first started transitioning, there wasn't insurance coverage at all. There's been a lot of activism around that, thankfully, and I'm so glad that you got to benefit from that. A lot of people still don't have that, though, because what is happening is they're rolling back on Medicaid, and a lot of trans people are lower income because of discrimination. I mean, basically. And so there isn't insurance coverage.
Oh, well, I don't have it now. Here in Nebraska, my insurance doesn't cover. Like if I had got my top surgery here, I would have had to. It would have been covered, but not as completely. Like I did not pay for it in Connecticut. So I got my hysterectomy done here, and I ended up paying out of pocket. It was covered, but I ended up.
And that can be a lot of money.
I had to pay co-pays, and it was a couple $1,000s that I had to pay for that. Whereas for my top surgery in Connecticut, I think I paid $75.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow, yeah. Yeah, I paid for pretty much everything, and it put me in dire poverty for 10 years.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So Connecticut is Connecticut is the place to go if you need.
Yeah. But I mean, the problem now though is like you're pointing out, different states allow different things now. We don't have rights across America. We have to almost choose where we're at now, which is terrible, right? Because we're all Americans. We're all part of the same country. So we should have the same rights, going to different places, but apparently we don't. Apparently we don't. And if you're a poorer person, you have a lot to think about. And I'm bringing up poverty because I was put into poverty by accessing healthcare, but also it's something I had to really think about in my transition process. Can I do this? Because of poverty. And I would just hate to see us go back in that direction where, people cannot live their lives because of poverty. They can't access healthcare. All that stuff. And I feel like we're going in that direction.
I think we're going in that direction too. And I think even like I was saying before, like choosing to go to get, a psychologist and a therapist to talk to, and to be able to make those decisions, whatever you want to do, to talk to whatever professionals you want to. And that's all just too expensive. I think it's I was very, very lucky because it was covered. But.
And I think a lot of doctors and therapists are afraid now.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Because their licensure and their funding is being threatened. It's being threatened right now.
Right. Yeah. And there's all kinds of things where now that they're trying to propose that people can go back, and if they're unhappy up to like 20 years later, that they can some of the bills that they're trying to put through, and no doctor can take that risk. I mean, they've put themselves into debt to get through medical school.
But also, just speaking of that, there's a high rate of satisfaction with these procedures. I mean, very high. Oh yeah, very high. So,
but
it's still but doctors are always worried about liability. So
and that's the threat, right? So that's what they're trying to do, is make it such an obscenely long period of time that even a high rate of success that you could within a 20-year
Yeah.
period put enough social pressure on people
Right. Yeah.
to make them unhappy, even
Right.
if they're happy, because 20 years is a long time.
And that social pressure is discrimination.
Right.
It's harassment, daily harassment, which some trans people do experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, I have known a couple of people who have so-called detransitioned because they couldn't handle that discrimination.
Right.
And bless them, in their lives for having to make whatever choices, are good for them. But yeah, you're right. That's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing. They're giving that window to put that social pressure, and then the doctors know it.
Yeah.
And they can't take that risk professionally. Right. So
yeah, it's very hard. They have to get this extraordinary insurance for malpractice and that sort of thing. I'm sure that's going to go way up too if anybody offers this, this kind of care.
And then they've tried in some places legislation where, and I don't know because so many laws are coming up fast and furious, and I don't know what's passed and what hasn't.
I know.
But there's some
I know one activist, she looks every day.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
I wish. But that's almost what you have to do to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
But there were some places where any hospital that gets government funding would lose their government funding, if anything. And it's just insanely just crazy amounts of ridiculousness because it's all just healthcare. It's,
right.
So.
And that punishes kind of everybody too. I keep bringing that up recently. Just because you have a certain kind of patient, and that patient needs care, and now we're going to punish the whole hospital. It's scary. Okay, so I took a break there, and I was thinking that we could talk about if you have a sense of community here, because you're kind of coming out in a time that is more fraught for being trans. It was getting better for a while, kind of the 2010 to maybe when Trump became president was pretty good. That was a good time. But then after that, I would say things have gotten a lot worse, like really, really bad, like worse than when I came out in some ways. So what are you doing here in Nebraska for, socializing and that sort of thing, I guess, with other trans people, if you're doing that at all?
So in person, not much. So here, actually locally, I don't really do anything. I am part of an online community of trans guys.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yes, that's where we met. And trans guys over 40, and I meet up with them like once a week on Zoom and chat that way. And so I think that's most of the interaction that I have is with those guys.
And is that a consequence of COVID, like that everything kind of went online, or have you always kind of just been online?
I don't know. So I didn't start meeting up with them. I knew that the group was there and I was in the Facebook community, but I didn't go to the Zoom meetings until I moved here to Nebraska. And then when I moved here, I decided that I was pretty isolated here and I didn't have any sort of community. I didn't know anybody. And
so you felt the greater kind of social pressure
here. Yeah. Okay. And so then I just went and I connected up with them, and then it was really good and really positive. And so I just keep coming back. But I don't know the full extent of why they're meeting online when they started. I wasn't in on the ground up with them.
Does your your workplace, does it have any like affinity group there of LGBT people?
Yes.
Or maybe a center?
There's no center. There's a group. So there are employee groups. So they're not called caucuses. They're just employee groups.
Sure.
But there's one for Black people. There's one for Hispanic people. There's one for LGBT. There's one for religious people.
Sure.
There's it's true. They have one.
Okay. There's a very this is a very religious state.
It is like there's a thing, but I don't think it's a bad spirited one.
Sure,
like I think it's like how to actually navigate
the
faith. I don't know. I don't go to that one.
Okay.
and there's an LGBTQ one, and then there's a young, like for people that are just early career, under like early like 20s or something like that, future leaders or something like that. So there's a group, and it's I've gone, they have maybe monthly meetups online. I think that's because of COVID, but and I've gone to a couple of those, and it's very mixed. So it's not just trans people. It's I actually haven't met another trans person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not through there.
Wow. I'm surprised at that, actually.
Yeah, so it's been
because this is kind of a university setting, and right?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Medical setting.
Okay.
So I haven't met anybody, but then I haven't been. So Pride here is in July, so that'll be like the next big in-person thing. So maybe there.
Have you been to a lot of Pride events in the past?
I went last year.
Okay.
Because I just moved to Omaha, and I went to the Pride. It was like the next weekend. So I went. Prior to that, no, because there was COVID and there was not a lot of in-person things. And prior to that,
so COVID really kind of messed with your relationships or being able to form them.
Yes.
Yeah, early in your transition.
And then prior to that, I mean, I didn't consider myself part of the community.
Right.
So
right. So do you feel that you're more part of that community now? Because there is the LGBT part.
Yes, and I definitely feel that, yes, but I haven't, again, because of COVID, I think, and just life situations and not being so young that I go out every weekend and do things, that I haven't had a lot of in-person community. And I think that that's where you really start to feel part of a bigger community.
I'd be willing to bet that there's some older trans men here, though.
There probably are, but I just don't know how to. I haven't found them. I don't know. But I would like that. I think in-person community would be nice, and I also,
and you get to do adult things like, you know, go out to a nice restaurant or something.
Yes, that would be more my speed, and I think that would be nice. It's just, it was moving to a new place and not really knowing anything. And then I met the guys online, and I meet up, and then I just but I think moving forward, it would be good to have more in-person connections.
Yeah.
I haven't found specifically trans groups. There's one, but I didn't, it just seemed complicated. Like you had to send in like a questionnaire and answer questions, and then agree to an interview of whether or not you could be allowed in the group. And I was like, this just seems like a lot of work.
Well, you're gonna find that in places like this, though, because people feel like they need to be more secure about who you are before you're let into a social group. And I've experienced that as well. And it feels off-putting at first.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know.
First. Yeah. But if you just took an afternoon and devoted yourself to that, it might be a good outlet. I mean, who knows? I mean, take a chance. I mean, at least it would be a safe space.
Yeah, it was very complicated because I looked up the website and it was like, go here and then do this and download this page and send it in and wait for a phone call, and then you'll have an interview, and then someone will meet. And it just seemed like a lot of steps that I was like, I don't know about this.
Okay, yeah, because you're kind of busy. But, you might consider it at some point if you have a moment, because at least it would be safe space.
Yeah.
It would be a safe space, because it sounds like they're trying to keep it safe. Because
right.
There may be some hostile people here. Yeah. Right? So good on you if you're organizing that, even though it sounds like it's quite a process.
Yes. Maybe I'll try it out. I just wasn't brave enough to like go through all those steps. I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Right. In a personal interview.
Yeah. It's like,
am I trans enough?
No. Exactly.
No. Some people are like that, though. Are you trans enough?
That's what went through my head. I was like, am I gonna? I don't know if I need this scrutiny. I don't know. Yeah. Like
I once went to a group in Portland, Oregon, and it was an in-person group and also an online group, and they were uncomfortable that I was still using my previous name, and it was so strange.
People get the I don't understand, because it doesn't impact anybody. Like
Yeah.
I just don't feel the need, and maybe I just don't have the energy or the mental capacity, but I can't take on to myself other people's
Yes.
choices.
Yeah.
Like I don't,
or they're bullshit.
yeah.
let's just put it out there, or they're bullshit.
If someone wants to use whatever, if someone uses whatever pronouns, if someone uses whatever name, if someone identify, okay,
It doesn't impact you.
okay, like it doesn't.
Yeah.
If I do something different, okay, we're fine.
Yeah, there was so much gatekeeping. It was like I had to be like super butch and, choose a super butch name. And you know what I did? I did kind of pick a super butch name, Hank. I was like, yeah, but it doesn't fit me. I was just like, what is the kind of a butch name I can use?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's just weird the amount of strange gatekeeping that people do, and I just don't have time and or energy to worry with it. And I think just let people do what they're comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And
that's why I like the whole non-binary thing or agender thing, because it kind of opens it up. Like, quit being so stiff, Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I was also wondering, so there's like friendship and that sort of support. But you went from being a straight woman.
Yes.
And then you had kind of this bisexual kind of relationship, which made you think about some things there. And where are you at with that now? And you live in a red state.
I live in a red state. Yes. So I would say that my romantic and physical orientation is towards men.
Okay. Do you identify as being gay then, or queer?
I would say I'm gay.
Okay.
Or queer. I still am at a point where I don't have a lot of experience with the gay male community, so it seems a little, I don't want to appropriate something that's not mine, but I feel like that's how I would identify.
Yeah.
But
and there are trans men who've been in gay male spaces for quite a while.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel, but they're, again, part of the pushback, and one of the things that I'm hyper aware of is the pushback against, by cis gay and lesbian people against trans people right now, and I'm hyper aware of that because
you gotta realize that's
it's just made up. I know.
It's just a little group.
It's a tiny group, and I know,
and they're just causing a lot of trouble. For the most part, most LGBT people, LGBT people are going to accept transgender people because we've been in the community. We've been a vital part of this greater community forever.
Right. And I know that, and I know it's just a small minority.
And they want to date us too. They do want to date us.
I just worry, and I know that that's my own insecurities. Of still being so early, and not having a lot of in-person experiences, and so I think that
you're going from straight world to the very gay world, very suddenly,
and that's fine. But I'm also 50, and I'm not, and it's I feel like people my age or that I would be interested in have a wealth of experiences that I don't share, and so I have experiences that they don't share, and so I'm nervous, and I'm definitely interested, and I'm motivated, but I don't know how to make that happen. It's like you said, in a red state where it's hard enough for anything.
One of my previous interviewees in New Hampshire, a trans woman, she runs an outdoor LGBT group.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that might be a way to get involved because you're very athletic, you run a lot, etc. That might be an option. Also, maybe look for older men's events. It doesn't have to be always the club or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't do that either. I can't do that either. Even though I do love to dance and all that, I can't do that either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's just me being socially awkward and socially. socially awkward and just fearful and
Yeah.
not self-confident.
Well, it sounds like somebody
enough.
has to approach you.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right
just
here. Handsome and accomplished right here.
I just feel very insecure still, and I know that's just something you have to work
Yes.
through. But
Yeah. It's part of that adolescence.
Yeah.
Right? You're changing all kinds of roles and
things are changing, and I don't have the facial hair yet, and I don't have the
Sure you do.
What, it's
coming in.
It's
It comes
coming
very
in.
slowly, but
Yes.
it's coming in.
It's coming in. And,
You still have head hair though.
Yeah, I have head hair. That I have.
Yeah.
It's thinning slightly, but
No, it looks
not
great. You just have that classic look, where it's fading a little bit.
a little bit. Yeah. So it's coming in, and I can see here. This has all happened in the past 2 months, and so
really?
yeah, so
Great.
it's now on a roll, and I'm just
Yeah.
oh, let's go.
Yeah.
So it's actually there was nothing for a year, and then just a little bit here and this, and then that sort of stood still, and then in the past, I would say 2 months, it's just it's gone from peach fuzz to hair, but it's just
And it's so nice and dark too. Yeah.
So
That's a blessing.
yes, I'm waiting and patiently because there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do,
That's true.
and so
No, you can hold your breath like this and push and it'll
push
come out.
and yeah. So I just let it grow, and it looks scraggly, and I don't care because
Celebrate it.
I'm happy.
Celebrate your strangeness.
Yes, let it all fly.
Let it all.
But I get nervous when it comes to a romantic relationship because I have dated men, but in an extremely different dynamic, and I know what didn't work for me, and so I just never had a lot of opportunity to figure out what did work. So I know what doesn't, but not what does, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you said you were stoned.
Yeah.
Which means that I guess that somebody isn't doing anything to you.
Right. Okay. And that was with the woman that I dated, but with men, no, because that wasn't an option.
Okay.
And so I know, but now I have a different body, and it responds differently, and
That's
it's got slightly different parts than it did before.
Sure.
And I'm I don't know how to go in to a relationship with people that have a lot more experience. You know what I'm saying? If everybody's just figuring things out and everybody's young and experimenting, but I'm but it's just one of those things you have to work through.
But also, there's a lot of variation in the gay community as well. There are men who come out older.
Yeah.
There are men who are aging who don't care about all that stuff, and they're kind of over it. There's also gay fairies, and they're very open about being gender fluid and welcoming people who are gender fluid in their spaces. Yeah, and there are people who like the bears, the kind of gay bear guys. They're kind of more rotund like I am, and they're often very welcoming. Of trans people. Mm-hmm.
I'm not hairy enough to be a bear, but
yeah, but they still might welcome you into their spaces. Yeah, totally.
Little hairless wonder.
Yeah. Do you ever worry about that you won't be welcomed in?
Yes and no, because I think my experiences have all been fairly positive.
Great.
And I know that
your workplace is very
my
positive.
work experiences and what I have experienced personally since coming out as trans has all been very positive. Mm-hmm. So I have the expectation that's the actual state of the world. That most people, I think most people really are, if not knowledgeable, at least accepting. Mm-hmm. But I think that right now there's a big campaign, and it has to be a big campaign because it's trying to convince people that really don't have those problems with trans people to have them. And so I think there's a big push.
Like it's edgy or something. To be a bigot.
It's what all the cool people
Gross.
are doing. So
Gross.
it's, but So I don't want to have a worldview that's in opposition to what I've actually experienced, which is most people are pretty accepting, if not knowledgeable, not actively hostile.
Are you worried to take a chance?
But
Because you have to take a chance.
Exactly. But I'm stepping into a new situation, and I do hear, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of negativity. And as long as I stay in my places where I feel comfortable, then feel comfortable. But I feel like nowadays, politically, socially, it's scary to get out of your comfort zone on a personal level as well as a social space where you don't really know what you're going to encounter.
Sure.
So it's like that double whammy of trying to figure yourself out in a hostile environment.
Right. And then on top of that, some people are doing activism as well and putting themselves out there. Yeah. It's a scary situation.
Yeah.
And especially too, like, I feel very distant from politicians. Fuck them. Actually, fuck all of them pretty much. But when it starts affecting my social life or, my romantic relationships, that's really when it hits home,
Yeah. So I feel like I don't know how to navigate that, and I'm nervous about it, and then I'm like, well, what if, and that's when all the what ifs, well, what if, and all the negativity and the self-doubt comes in, and
Well, I hope you do take a chance, because it seems like you really want to.
I would like to.
It seems like you really do.
I would like to. I just don't. I'm nervous. Like I little steps.
Well, there are some gay men who kind of like the awkward, nervous, nerdy guys.
But I don't want to be that. I in my head, I'm 6'3". Like that's the other thing. Like in my head, I'm not nerdy or nervous. I'm 6'3" and very confident but I'm not. So.
Well, we all have to work with what we got.
Yeah. If I could be 6'3", I'd be happy. I would definitely be taller.
Well, you need about a foot more.
Definitely need a foot more. Yeah. That's all. Just a foot.
I don't think that's possible right now.
No. It is what it is. Like they can't do anything about it. But I feel scared, because for me, a lot of it was, the physicality of it that was causing me problems before. And so getting in with a new body and a new physicality, and I'm just like, oh, what if that goes wrong too?
And testosterone can change your desire and, how you express yourself.
Yeah. So, but I feel comfortable with myself, but I'm not fully where I want to be, but I'm compared to where I started, it's apples and oranges. Like,
it sounds like you have a lot of opportunity to go find community and to form relationships, and even though you're in a red state and it it can be quite hostile here, are you planning to be here for a long time, or
it depends. Yes. If things work out job-wise and the political things don't get worse. Okay. So
if they do get worse, you would look for jobs elsewhere?
I would. I have no ties to this state. I'm here for work, and I like my job, but if it's politically not going to work out, I would leave.
Okay. Yeah. Just too heavy.
Yeah. I don't want to... I again, and I don't think everybody should move and not everybody can move, but I have no ties to this community. I'm not from here. I have no deep roots. If it's hostile to my existence, I don't know that I would stay here to fight that fight in a place where I don't have roots. I would.
And that brings up a good point, actually. People who do stay, just talking about that for a second, who are very invested in their communities because they grew up here and they are doing activism. They care so much about where they're living that they are willing to put themselves out there.
Oh, yeah.
So if you see activists and they're being annoying to you, think about that. Think about how much love goes into that, to what they are doing. They are willing to confront people so that they can actually thrive in the place where they grew up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that takes a lot of love and trust. You know?
It takes a lot of, and I have a lot of respect for people
Yeah.
that can do that. But
Yeah.
I think you have to be grounded to that community in a
Yeah.
certain way,
Yes.
because if you're not,
Right.
if you're not from there, or
Right.
or if you're not
You're
tied to it,
Right, you're not.
I-
Academics kind of famously are not, because your job depends on the research center. You
Right.
go to the research
center.
Yeah.
And I had this talk at a conference recently, and it was sort of, I was a little bit upset by it, because a lot of where you have to go where you can do the work, right? And so it's not just, I want to go here and there'll
Right.
be a job for me.
Right.
And as certain states are seeming less and less hospitable to trans people, you have narrowing opportunities, and that's really hard, because it's
Narrowing opportunities in
already narrow field.
It's academia is the most competitive thing I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
Okay? It's more competitive than anything you could probably think of.
And then to also then, have to weigh out huge places like Texas, which has huge numbers of
Right.
and
medical centers. Yeah,
and
yeah.
if you take all that out, your
Yeah.
prospects are really shrinking.
Right. And then other people are thinking the same thing.
Right,
Because
and
they
so-
don't want to live in a hostile state,
Right.
even if they're not trans.
And
Yeah.
it's sort of, we were talking about this, and it's not an easy thing to think about, because your jobs are so limited.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And then so you could end up where you would stay and fight. And I think
Mm-hmm.
at that point, then I would, if that's your only opportunity. But I don't have.
But who wants to do that?
Who wants to do that? Especially because you're not. I feel like I feel like I'm fighting for trans rights, but generally, like anywhere, not specifically Nebraska as
Yeah.
a.
Yeah.
I
But people
have-
who are from here
oh yeah
are
yeah,
doing
yeah,
that.
yeah, are doing that.
Yeah,
And that's a different feeling,
That's
because you're tied. And if I mean, I've lived so many different places.
Right.
I don't really feel tied to a place.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
you're from Kentucky, right?
I grew up there.
Okay. Do you feel anything like worried about people that you grew up with, or about the social situation there? Because
They have the worst law. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know anybody personally who's trans who's there. I know several people who are gay and lesbian that are in
Sure.
Kentucky, but I don't know any.
it also affects
people.
them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I worry about that. Right now, what the legislature is doing in Kentucky is just, it's cruel.
What specifically? Because I travel around, so
Well,
I don't know everything.
I'm trying to think. Like, they passed like one of the harshest anti-trans bills in the country. So I'd
Okay.
have to look at the specifics.
Sure.
But it's no minors, no trans care for minors, and I'm pretty sure like they can't do sports, like they can't do all that for minors, and I can't remember all the specifics of it, but I know.
But it's pretty bad.
But it was pretty bad. And there's a very famous speech that went around, like in protest of it, just calling out just all the I can't remember her name, the representative that gave the speech, but she gave just this scathing anti against all the people that voted for the bill, and she just did a great job, I think, pointing out the cruelty of it and how this is going to be. And so I worry about kids growing up there, because I think I grew up in there, and there's always a sense of being different, and I think when I grew up, I didn't have the words for things. I didn't know how to name things. I wasn't aware. Things were brewing, and there was a lot under the surface, but I didn't have words for it. I couldn't name it, and that's its own problem.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine to be growing up in a time when you can name it
Yeah.
and you can identify it and be that young, and then have people come in and say, don't care.
Yeah. Right.
don't care.
You're
wrong.
You don't get to go to the bathroom. You don't get to read books.
Yeah. And I can't imagine what that does to a kid, because it was hard not knowing what was going on. Then that's its own problem.
Right.
And then we make this progress where, you know, people have fought and information, and now kids can actually name and define and understand themselves. And then to be told at that sensitive period of time, when you've done that work, when you're already, you know, brave enough to come out and you're doing all that, to be told, don't care, you're going to suffer.
Right.
Don't care. And I think that the impact on those kids is just, it's just cruel. It's just cruelty.
Yeah.
And I feel very bad for kids in that situation, because you're learning about yourself and your place in the world, and to be told, and it's not just trans people. I mean, this has happened in other, you know, other situations to other people, and still happens, you know, in communities of color and things like that. But to be told that you are not a valued member of your society,
and that there's so much hatred out there for you, and being directed at you. Yeah.
and anybody who touches you is tainted, right? Any doctor that wants to help you could lose their medical license. Any teacher who's nice to you can lose their job. You're not only a bad person, but you're tainting your community. You're a burden to your community, and I think that that's just unbelievably cruel.
Yeah, it is cruel. It is cruel. Yeah, it increases isolation. I mean, online people are saying things like, the cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
I mean, it is absolutely true. And the kids are the ones being targeted here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mostly. Kids are being targeted by these laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as they're learning their place, it will be, you know, we'll look back, hopefully history will look back and shine a true lens on just.
I always wonder why we have to go through all this pain to get there, though.
I don't know.
You know,
I think it's a reaction because, like you said before, there was like a bit of progress, and so as soon as there's a bit of progress and so visibility and rights, that the backlash against that has to be cruel. The backlash to visibility, the backlash to progress. Because it's about equality, it's about equal rights, it's about having an equal space in your culture, it's about being able to claim yourself and you know, your own identity in your own space.
Who wouldn't want that, though? Who wouldn't want that for everybody?
I can name a few people.
Oh, sure, but I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
And the backlash against that is just to, you know, clap down and say no, you're not
bring
equal.
The power of the state to oppress people. Great. Great. That sounds very conservative, by the way. It sounds like growing the government.
Yeah.
But
they're small government. They don't want government to interfere in anybody's lives. But...
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for meeting with me. I think that's a good place to end it. Is there anything else you'd like to say? You know, just general about being a older trans man, or, you know, navigating in a red state, just kind of a final kind of thing.
I think that I don't know I don't know, navigating in a red state, just be safe and don't feel that you have to be the hero.
Or that you have to even be out.
Do what you have to do. Times are tough right now, and I don't think that it's shameful to consolidate your energy and take the steps that you can, that you don't have to be ashamed of that, because people don't have a lot of resources right now psychically, and
ask for help.
Ask for help. So I would say that for being a red state. And as far as for being an older person coming out, I would say go for it. Know yourself, and don't think that you can't because it's too late or too old or something like that. I would say that it's know who you are, do that internal work, and then, you know, go forward as yourself, and it's worth it.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple times myself, that from older people, that, oh, it's just too late for me. It's never too late. You're still alive.
Yeah. And it's definitely the freedom, the emotional freedom that you feel just within your own self is well worth it. So,
yeah, take it right here. Right here. All right, thank y'all. This is a great day. I only have one interview, so we've gone at a leisurely pace, which I've really appreciated. I've had some days where there's been 2 and even 3 interviews, and I'm traveling and I'm working and taking care of my dog and myself and whatnot. Getting by though. I'm doing it. Anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
you. Yeah, I'm so glad to talk to you because we've had a little bit of online contact and I was curious about you.
Yes.
So
anyway. Good to talk to you.
All right. Thank y'all.